Netflix really surprised everyone with their One Piece live action adaptation because we had our expectations extremely low for it, especially because Tomorrow Studios had previously done Cowboy Bebop. But luckily, it came out to be a pretty freaking good series, and the co-showrunner is now reaffirming their commitment to respecting the source material in future seasons. I have a few different things that I want to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or via YouTube memberships. Now, over the past few days, I have had to talk a lot about some poor adaptations that Netflix has done, most notably Castlevania Nocturne, okay? And these are leagues apart. I've got to be honest, I was very skeptical before One Piece came out. I was very worried. Some of the initial images we saw weren't that good. And especially judging Tomorrow Studios' track record with Cowboy Bebop, my expectations were very low. But it really came out on top. It did really good for them numbers-wise. They've already greenlit a season 2. And the showrunners are saying everything positive, everything that fans want to hear. Well, on the other hand, you've got Netflix adaptations like Castlevania Nocturne, which just have disappointed everyone. They changed everything, even down to the setting. They didn't keep characters the same. They just unfortunately did not do what people wanted with it. But it's always good to see something like this where co-showrunners are reaffirming their commitment to respecting source material. So it says, in providing even further evidence that the beloved franchise is in capable, if not outright good hands, the Netflix One Piece co-showrunner Matt Owens has declared that even as the series approaches some of the more outrageous and fantastical parts of Oda's seminal tale, source material accuracy remains one of his highest priorities. Now, I do think a major reason why this series went so well compared to so many other anime adaptations we've seen is because of Oda. I think he called himself like a guard dog with this series. He was constantly going through what they were creating and what they were writing, and changes they had to make went through him, and he really put a lot of time and effort into this. Now, that doesn't mean that season 2 and season 3 and any other seasons they do are going to be as good as season 1, because we do not know what capacity he's going to have in the show going forward. He obviously was a very big part of season 1. Maybe in season 2 his role will be reduced. Maybe by season 3 he won't really be part of it at all. We have no clue, but what we have seen so far is really good and very promising, and I do think it is because of Oda. When you have an original creator working on an adaptation, it really just feels like the project is brought together. It says Owen spoke to this important aspect of the Straw Hat Pirates live-action victory while participating in a public AMA, or Ask Me Anything session. Asked by a user, in One Piece we'll often say goodbye to characters and not see them again for 100, 200 or more chapters. Do you plan to create original material to give characters like Kobe, Buggy, Ace, or Garp stuff to do in the seasons they otherwise wouldn't appear in? And he affirmed that the series production crew was not looking to necessarily make stuff up, and they were still open to boosting screen time for certain characters, but only if it was done in accordance with Oda's own supplemental materials. And I think that this is a great response, because obviously people get attached to characters, and sometimes, the social media effect happens where a side character ends up blowing up in popularity and they really feel like they have to up their screen time. And it's good that they're saying they wouldn't necessarily look to do that, but also if Oda has supplemental material that could help them fulfill that vision that fans want, and it would make sense to the story, they would be willing to it. This is just a really great response. And honestly, I feel like this team all around has just almost always had the perfect response. Maybe that is because they are genuinely, in love with the material. They feel so passionate about it and they respect it so much. Maybe they've just been trained really well to say everything that fans want, and the people on this project are actually trying to, make people as happy with them as possible. Who really knows? But it doesn't matter, because these are the responses we're getting, and they're great compared to something like Netflix's Castlevania Nocturne that came out, and you had one of the designers for the show basically saying, oh, if you don't like the changes we made, then that's your problem, like with Annette's race swap, right? They said, go and complain about something that actually matters, but it does matter because not only was she race swapped and she looks very different, but she in totality is a different character. In her essence, she is not the Annette we previously knew. This one is a strong woman. She doesn't need any man. She hates the Belmont boys. Like, these are things that people did not want or expect because, again, that's just not who Annette was. But they changed all of these things and expected us to be okay with that, and obviously it did not sit well with fans. I mean, just look at the scores between these series. I mean, they are wildly different. One Piece is sitting at an 85 critic and a 95 audience. Now, I don't think that One Piece deserved a 95. I do still think that some of the sets looked a little wonky. Some of the, like, wigs and the outfits could have been a little better. I don't think it deserves a 95, but I do agree with an 85. But when we have Nocturne, it's completely different user-wise. Now, of course, the critics absolutely love this. They're giving it 100%, which no show deserves a 100%. But it's sitting at a measly 45% audience score. You can clearly see how audiences feel between these two series. Just the content is so very different. The responses that have been given to fans are so very different. And, you know, obviously, One Piece adaptation has done very well for them. They have already greenlit season 2. We don't know any other seasons beside that, but the co-showrunner, the same co-showrunner, had actually declared he will make this show up until Netflix says no more, and they confirmed that season 2 writer's room is up and running, and he said that, you know, they will dedicate as much time to this as Netflix will give them. Any kind of budget, they work with a big budget, a small budget, it doesn't matter because they really want to get this to fans. And I think that Netflix will keep this around for a while. Obviously, there's a lot of steam behind this. There's lots of One Piece fans out there that have helped blow up this series, but the live action series had topped Netflix's top 10 charts with a booming 140 million hours viewed in its release week. It took the #1 spot. It did great viewership wise, and while it did fall off kind of quickly, that wasn't really all that surprising. It's just what happens, you know, a series that releases all of its content, on the same day, within like a week or two, it usually falls off. But we did still hear that the numbers were great, booming 140 million hours viewed first week. So lots of positivity surrounding the One Piece adaptation. I'm really glad to hear that so many people are loving it. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong. They didn't keep it, you know, as accurate as possible, but I think they did a pretty damn good job, and they did as best as I feel they could have. Of course, there are things that are always going to feel very goofy, things that just don't always translate the best when you're going to a live action format versus the anime slash manga, but I think they did a pretty good job. A lot of the casting decisions were great here, and overall, I think a lot of people are excited for season 2, and it's always great to hear showrunners reaffirming their commitments to respecting source material. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.